a secret experiment from the mad science of Momir Vig himself. Ah, but after his death, without the madman's brain to control it, this enormous body of cytoplasts went on a rampage through the streets of Ravnica. For you see, dear student of the Simic, this work of brilliance needs a brilliant brain behind it in order to win. Think you are smart enough to control Experiment Kraj? Experiment Kraj is the most Simic of Simic commanders. He's not the strongest, but he's definitely the cheekiest, leading a deck that generates combos on the fly and requires complex but fun board states to actually win. If you manage a win with Kraj, you've definitely earned it, which makes him more palatable in playgroups that don't go for degenerate combos. It's also a very tunable deck that can go wild with ramp and +1/+1 counters if the infinite combo plan doesn't work out. This deck can be built on a budget. It uses a lot of bulk cards with no other home, and very few of the cards I'll be mentioning cost more than $1. Let's begin with the Experiment Kraj basics. So what does Kraj actually do? For 2 of anything, 2 green and 2 blue, you get a 4/6 Ooze Mutant with 2 abilities. Kraj has all activated abilities of each other creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. An activated ability, as opposed to other sorts of abilities, is anything you pay a cost to activate at a time of your choosing. Activated abilities always have a colon in them separating the cost from the effect, and they never start with whenever or on your upkeep. Kraj's second ability is an example. You can tap him to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Note that Kraj's abilities work on all creatures on the battlefield, not just yours. This means that your arsenal changes from game to game, and recognizing opportunities as they crop up is key. For example, if an opponent plays Olivia Voldaren and uses her first ability to get a +1/+1 counter, Kraj now has both of her abilities. If you can pay the mana cost, you can use her second ability to take control of her, or whatever other vampire strikes your fancy. It's well worth accessing colors beyond Simic to expand your options here, and thus Chromatic Lantern is a standout card. Quicksilver Elemental is your redundancy plan if Kraj is out of commission. For a bit more mana, it will let your combos go wild. It's even better than Kraj in some respects, since it frees you from worrying about counters or mana colors. Distributing counters. Clearly, getting +1/+1 counters onto the right creatures is key, and Kraj can do that himself if necessary, but you really want to be saving his untaps for stolen abilities. Novigen, Heart of Progress, and Aran Reef the Vastwood are obvious auto-includes here, to get counters on your creatures right away, as is Llanowar Reborn. Graft creatures are also great for this, especially since they come with useful abilities. Plax Caster Frogling can distribute 2 counters to future creatures, and then grant them Shroud. Helium Squirter, Aquastrand Spider, and Novigen Sages let you get counters where they need to be and give you a toolbox of abilities. Forgotten Ancient and Master Biomancer deserve special mention here, though they're scary enough as threats to draw some hate from opponents. You're also going to want to include cards like Unity of Purpose, Verdant Confluence, and Nissa's Judgment. There are plenty of non-creature spells that just put +1/+1 counters on things, but since having them in hand at the right time is tricky, make sure you can get use out of the other effects. Abilities worth stealing. Now that you've got counters flying left and right, you need some abilities worth stealing. Cytoplast Manipulator is a graft creature with an excellent ability. For a blue and a tap, you can gain control of target creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. Kraj can act as an effectively hasty copy of abilities like this when he's already on the battlefield, letting you get benefit without your creature needing to survive a full go-round. Archivist and Arcanist the Omnipotent provide excellent card draw, while Uvenwald Tracker provides a repeatable fight attack. With all the abilities going around, you should have ways to get more out of them. Copy powerful abilities with Illusionist's Bracers, or Rings of Bright Earth. Prophet of Krufix was banned earlier this year, but there are still creatures with similar effects like Seedborn Muse and Mercfiend Liege that you can utilize. What about combining abilities? All of this talk of abilities is well and good, but our general still hasn't done much at all. The real sinister purpose of Kraj is to splice abilities onto him that nature and game developers never intended to exist. Untap abilities are key. There are a number of creatures with activated abilities to untap themselves, often for a single blue mana. This is why we include cards like Horseshoe Crab, Simic Ragworm, Morphling, and Leech Bonder. With one of these in play, Kraj's +1/+1 counter ability becomes more than just a toy, and you can start to pump creatures and set up combos with it. With Horseshoe Crab and Arcanist the Omnipotent on the board, Kraj can tap to add a counter on the crab, untap for blue, tap to add a counter onto Arcanist, and you've now got Ancestral Recall on a stick. But Kraj won't stop there as he oozes through the streets of Ravnica or wherever, absorbing everything in sight. We need to go infinite, and we can do that with Mana Dorks. Only a few select Mana Dorks work well with Kraj and Untappers. Untap effects tend to require blue mana, but Mana Dorks generally produce green, so getting them to work together is a challenge. Argothian Elder and Krosan Restorer with Threshold are the best. So long as you have the appropriate lands in play, they effectively tap for whatever colors you want. Graft their ability onto Kraj along with Horseshoe Crab, and you've now got infinite mana of both your colors along with infinite untaps of Kraj, letting you abuse his pump ability and any other abilities on the battlefield worth stealing. Now there's no shortage of Mana Dorks that produce tons of green mana, which is less useful for us. However, when paired with Orochi Leafcaller, cards like Gyre Sage and Karametra's Acolyte become combo pieces of the first order. Bloom Tender will generally tap for a blue and a green, meaning that paired with the blue untap effect, you get infinite green mana. Useful, but probably not game-winning. There are other untappers, though, the best of which is Pilipala, which doesn't have a color requirement, and will produce infinite mana with any 2-mana dork. Naxaw Click has a near-win condition built in. Along with Bloom Tender, you wouldn't get infinite mana, but you can exile your opponent's libraries. Hopefully you'll find a way to make them draw along the way, or just let them loose on their draw step. The interplay here is complex and fascinating, and a lot of fun to work out on the fly. In addition to putting infinite counters on things, stealing all creatures, and milling people out, Triskelion provides a straightforward way to convert mana into damage. There's even a totally separate combo with it. Kraj and Phyrexian Devourer to deal damage by milling yourself without any other cards needed. Let's take a look at the rest of the deck. So we've already covered the core of the Kraj game plan. From here, you can make the deck as competitive as possible by adding blue's plentiful counter spells. Choose your favorites and fine-tune, though I always recommend including the basic counter spell itself, as well as Redirect for multiplayer shenanigans. You'll also want to include green's excellent creature tutors, of which I highly recommend Worldly Tutor, Green Sun Zenith, and Chord of Calling, and the pitiful excuses for board wipes and spot removal you're stuck with in Simic colors. Cyclonic Rift, Curse of the Swine, Imprisoned in the Moon, and Rapid Hybridization. Defend your board and work towards your combo while disrupting the opposition. On the other end, mixing in more counter shenanigans can give you an alternative victory plan of just stomping down with huge creatures. All your mana dorks can give you an explosive start, and non-infinite Kraj interactions can help to make things huge. That's where cards like Vorel of the Hulklave, Calonian Hydra, Inexorable Tide, Fathom Mage, Altered Ego, and Hardened Scales all come into play. The mana base would be a typical 2-color commander mana base in Simic colors. If you have not seen my guide to building a 2-color mana base, you may do so here. There's a lot to love about Kraj, but what I like best of all is that this deck never plays the same way twice, and even opponents who know how it works will end up ignoring you until it's too late. Unleash your inner Simic Ooze Mutant and let Experiment Kraj loose upon your playgroup. I hope very much this video has been of some help to you. You can help me out by remembering to like, share, subscribe, or just by leaving a comment. What commander would you like to see a deck tech on next? Let me know in the comments below. And remember that this video, like all of my videos, is only made possible thanks to your generosity on patreon.com. If you love this channel and want to see it continue to go and grow, even support as low as $1 a month goes a long way. So thank you.